Good morning. This will be a follow-up video to my first one I posted the other day. And I wanted to thank Uncle Tony. I've had a lot of views on that, and everybody's viewing it he sent my way. So thanks to Uncle Tony for that. So the questions I'm getting are, what did it take to get this car running after it had sat for 20 years? And what did that cost? And so basically what people are asking is, how much do I have in the car total as it sits? If you recall from the first video, I told you I paid $5,500 for the car, $600 to get it here. So once it was here, my first question was, and we'll go over what it took to get running. You'll be able to figure out the cost. I'm not going to go through an itemized list, but so the first question was, would it even turn over? That's, I mean, if the engine's stuck, then that changes everything. So I just put the battery was dead and all that. So I just put a breaker bar on there and cranked the engine, and it turned over. No problem there. So we bought a battery and put that in there and tried to crank it. Nothing happened there, so the starter was bad. So I went to the junkyard and got a mini starter out of I think it was like a 95 Ram or that vintage, one of the mini starters. So we knew that we would crank. The next issue was the ignition system. The ignition system was originally a points. It had been converted to electronic with some kind of Radio Shack conversion kit that was a disaster. And the distributor was just shot, so much play in it. So I just decided I just got a Mopar electronic ignition conversion, and we put that in there. I went ahead and pulled the carburetor off. Rebuild kit's $20 and a couple hours of your time. So we did that. I knew the cooling system, having set that long, would be filthy, and it was. We pulled the water pump off, and glad I didn't even try to run the engine. I flushed and flushed and flushed the cooling system to finally get it clean. Fortunately for me, the radiator was rebuilt right before the car was actually parked, and it was still good. So I've had to do nothing to the radiator. While we're under the engine compartment, you can see a new brake master cylinder. The old one was stuck, so we put that on there. And then the other thing really under the hood that I had to mess with was on the power steering, the worm shaft seal was just leaking like crazy. So I replaced that. So you can see also, just incidental to everything I'm talking about, you have to know when a car sits for 20 years, I obviously replaced all the fluids, rear, trans, engine, everything, the oils, spark plug wires, power steering hoses, belts, radiator hoses. I mean, all those things you have to know. You're just going to have to replace. They're old, why not? And they're not expensive. I've actually gone through the trouble of even replacing all the vacuum hoses everywhere, and everything's intact on that. So that was that. Then the next thing was, we just did the roadkill version and hooked up a gas can and fired the engine, and it literally fired just the instant the key was turned. So I got really lucky on that. The next question was, well, how's your transmission going to be? And again, I got lucky. The transmission had been rebuilt right before the car was parked also, so the transmission is good to go. The next thing was to move to the back, and went ahead and pulled the gas tank. I knew it had set so long and the gas was varnish. I knew it was going to be filthy. So I pulled it and determined that the gas tank just needed to be replaced. So I replaced the gas tank. I just went ahead and put new straps on there. There's a new sending unit, a new filler neck. Everything back there was replaced. I flushed the fuel lines, replaced all the rubber in the fuel lines, of course a new filter, all those things. Got those done. Then drove it around the block. It ran good, but then of course the brakes needed attention. The brakes weren't so bad once I got the master cylinder replaced and figured out that was where a lot of my problems were. The front rotors and pads were fine. I mean, they just don't have a shelf life on them. But I went ahead and, repacked the bearings with grease. The rear brakes, the rear line, eventually I figured out it was just clogged up and it was causing me a lot of trouble. But I went ahead and put new wheel cylinders in the back and got a rebuild kit and just put all the new springs and everything on there. The rotors or the drum was fine, so that was the brakes. Everything else after that was pretty much cut and dry. I mean, it really didn't take a lot. It was the guy I bought it from. It was his daily driver until he parked it in the late 90s, and he didn't park it because it had broke down. He parked it because it had become a collector car, and he decided he should just park it, and he bought him a new car to drive every day and had intended to restore this, and it just, like many people, it sat for 20 years and he didn't. Fortunately for me, it was in the garage in his house the whole 20 years, so the car didn't deteriorate much in that time. The paint was completely chalked when I got it, and I just bought a buffer from Harbor Freight and thought, it might be worth giving it a shot, and it responded pretty well to that. The paint looks much better on video than it actually is, but it's okay. I mean, it's a driver, and I'm just going to enjoy the car. I don't have to have, a rotisserie restored car to enjoy it. So anyway, I think that's about it. Just a lot of little stuff. The wheels and tires. It had the Plymouth Division hubcaps. Replaced those. I found these wheels and tires on Craigslist for $600. They were brand new, basically. Some guy had bought them, put them on his Charger, decided he wanted to get some, center lines and some bigger meat, so he sold me these. Like I said, $600 for those. So the answer to your question is, how much do I have in the car as it sits? I didn't add up all the receipts, but I told you $5,500 for the car, $600 to get shipped, $600 in wheels and tires, and the gas tank would be the next most expensive thing I bought. So probably around $7,000 is what I have in the car, total expenses as it sits. And it runs like a top now. I mean, you could daily drive it once I get the back window back in. But for my first video, I mentioned I'm doing some work back there. So that's it, guys. I hope I answered those questions, what it took to get running, and how much I really have in the car. Thanks for watching.